Pee-wee, look at this line right there.
Oh, Lord have
It look like
mercy.
a nice one. Oh, yeah, it's a nice one. Big one, Pee-wee.
He's pulling a hole.
Whoa, back up. Whoa.
If you've ever caught swamp people on the History Channel, you know it's all about hunting gators deep in Louisiana's swamps. Messy, raw, and full of real grit. For years, Pickle Wheat was one of the standout faces, bringing skill and personality that fans loved. But then, she started fading away. Less screen time, fewer appearances, and eventually, gone. That sparked a wildfire of rumors and questions online. Did she quit? Was she fired? Most of the talk missed the real story completely. Let's unfold what really happened to the once-loved Pickle Wheat, the real story. Right in the middle of the mess of ropes and snapping jaws, a young woman named Pickle Wheat. Yeah, the name's unforgettable, but so was she. She showed up like a shot of adrenaline to the series, fresh-faced, tough as nails, and more than capable of holding her own in a boat full of gator hunters. Fans took to her quick, and before long, Pickle became a fan favorite. She wasn't just tagging along, she belonged out there. Pickle Wheat didn't sneak into swamp people quietly. She showed up and made waves from the start, not just because of her name, which, let's be honest, is unforgettable, but because she could hold her own out there in the Louisiana swamps. Born Cheyenne Wheat, she came from a family with deep roots in gator hunting. Her great-grandfather was one of the original swamp men in those parts, so in a way, she was just picking up the family trade. It wasn't a gimmick, it wasn't for the cameras, this was real life for her. She first appeared in season 12, and fans caught on pretty quick. She wasn't just tagging along. Pickle jumped into the boat with Troy Landry, one of the show's longtime legends, and proved herself as a legit hunter. She was fearless, focused, and had that down-home charm that made her a perfect fit for the show. Viewers liked her because she was the real deal. No ego, no fake drama, just a girl who could wrestle a gator and crack a joke in the same breath. Early on, she had some standout episodes, the kind where she's grabbing lines barehanded, hollering over the roar of the swamp, and dragging in some monster gators like it was just another Tuesday. You could tell she grew up around this life. She didn't just learn the ropes, she lived them. That authenticity is what made her stand out. She wasn't trying to play a part. She was the part. As seasons rolled on, though, fans started to notice something. Her screen time dipped. There were fewer scenes of her in the boat, fewer mentions, and eventually, no Pickle at all. No dramatic send-off, no emotional goodbye episode, just silence. That's when the internet did what the internet always does. It started guessing. Rumors flew, some wild, some petty. But here's the truth. There was no scandal, no meltdown, no reality TV explosion. From all the solid info out there, her exit seemed more like a quiet step away rather than a forced one. Now, Swamp People isn't known for giving every cast member a grand exit. A lot of folks just disappear between seasons, and that's kind of the nature of the show. It's filmed in brutal conditions, the schedules are rough, and it's real-life dangerous out there. Not everyone wants to keep doing that year after year, especially when they've already proven what they can do. And Pickle? She definitely proved it. By the time she stepped away from the show, sometime after season 14, depending on where you track her last full appearance, she'd already made her mark. Fans still ask about her, still tag her on social media, still want updates. And honestly, that kind of loyalty doesn't come from just showing up. It comes from leaving a real impression. As for what she's been up to since stepping back from Swamp People, there's plenty of solid, low-key info out there. She's been helping with her family's duck and turkey call business, Wheat's Game Calls, which has been around for decades. She's active outdoors, still hunting and fishing, and posts bits and pieces of her life on social media. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top, just a woman living the life she was born into. There's no big rebrand, no reality TV pivot. She didn't quit the swamp life. She just stopped doing it in front of a camera. It's also worth noting that History Channel and the producers never released any kind of official statement about her departure, which honestly isn't that surprising. Swamp People has always kept things pretty close to the vest. They don't run it like other reality shows with big exit storylines or spin-off drama. A lot of cast members rotate in and out, and the show keeps moving. So, if you were waiting for a season finale breakdown about where Pickle went, it was never coming. Some fans think she might come back, and maybe she will. That door's not necessarily closed. But for now, it looks like she's content living her life off-screen, keeping it simple, doing what she loves, just without the production crew and the national spotlight. At the end of the day, what really happened to Pickle Wheat is pretty straightforward. She came into Swamp People like a storm, proved herself, earned fans, and eventually stepped back without drama or spectacle. And maybe that's what makes her story so refreshing. No scandal, no mess, just real swamp roots and a quiet exit. So, who exactly is Pickle Wheat? And how did she go from just another face in the swamp to one of Swamp People's most memorable stars? Women in outdoor reality TV, gender and symbolism. Let's be real, that when most people think of gator hunting, they probably picture some tough, scruffy-looking guy in a camo hat yelling over an outboard motor. And for a long time, that's mostly what Swamp People gave us. A crew of weathered, grizzled men chasing monsters through the bayou. But then Pickle Wheat showed up and flipped that picture on its head, without even trying. She didn't show up trying to prove some point about women in male-dominated spaces. She just came in and did the work. She could drive the boat, pull the line, shoot the gator, and crack a smile after, like it was all in a day's work. And for her, it was. That's what made her so different. She didn't have to talk about how she belonged. She just showed up and made it obvious. That mattered, more than people might think. Outdoor reality TV, from Deadliest Catch to Mountain Men to Swamp People, has always leaned heavy into that rugged masculine vibe. You've got guys with beards, danger, heavy machinery, and maybe a dramatic voiceover. When women do show up, it's usually as sidekicks or background support. But Pickle wasn't background. She was center stage. She was out there doing exactly what the guys were doing, sometimes better, and not making a fuss about it. Fans noticed. People loved her for it. She became a role model without ever saying she was one. Young girls watching the show saw someone who looked like them out there in the mud, hauling in 500-pound gators like it was nothing. Moms and dads started tagging her in posts, saying their daughters wanted to hunt now. That's not just about TV, that's impact. Now sure, not everyone was cheering. There's always a handful of folks who don't like change, who think the swamp should be men-only territory. But honestly, most of the Swamp People fan base backed her up. She was too real to ignore. You couldn't watch her for 5 minutes and think she was just there for TV. She was the swamp. And the way she carried herself, tough but kind, serious about the work but always lighthearted, made her even more magnetic. Compared to other women in similar shows, Pickle felt different. On something like Deadliest Catch, the women who show up are usually trying to fight their way into the story, having to constantly prove they're one of the guys. Pickle didn't do any of that. She didn't have to. Her background, her skill, and her personality did all the talking. That might be why her presence felt so important, because it didn't feel forced. It felt natural. In fact, Pickle's time on the show kind of lined up with a bigger shift in outdoor TV. There's been more push lately to show women in traditionally tough roles without turning it into a spectacle. Not, look at this woman doing a man's job, but just, here's someone who's damn good at what she does. And that's exactly what Pickle brought to the table. No drama, no spotlight hogging, just showing up and doing the work with a smile and a whole lot of grit. When she left the show, or at least stepped away for a while, that presence went missing. And fans felt it. Not just because she was popular, but because she mattered. Her being there sent a quiet message that the swamp didn't belong to just one kind of person. It belonged to the people who respected it, who knew how to live off the land, and who didn't mind getting their hands dirty, male or female. So yeah, Pickle Wheat wasn't just another cast member. She was a shift in tone, in representation, in what people expect from shows like this. And even though she's not in the boat on screen right now, that shift stuck around. She opened the door, whether she meant to or not, and that's a pretty big deal. The business behind the bayou, reality TV, cast turnover, and why people leave. So let's talk about something that rarely makes it on screen. The business side of reality TV. Shows like Swamp People might look like it's just folks out in the wild doing what they've always done. But behind those boats and bayous is a whole machine of producers, contracts, paychecks, and cameras. And when you're trying to figure out why someone like Pickle Wheat suddenly isn't on the show anymore, this is where you've got to look. Not at drama, but at logistics. First off, Swamp People is a long-running show. It kicked off back in 2010, and by the time Pickle joined, the show was already deep into its groove. That means the cast wasn't just picked for who could hunt gators. They were picked for who made good TV. Now, Pickle definitely made good TV, but that doesn't mean the producers were going to keep everyone around forever. Reality shows rotate people in and out all the time. Sometimes it's because of money. Sometimes it's about creative direction. And sometimes folks just get tired of having a camera in their face while they're trying not to get eaten. There's also the contract side of things. And while the public never gets to see the fine print, it's no secret that reality TV stars don't always have the easiest deals. A lot of them get paid by the episode, which means if you're not filming, you're not earning. Add in the time commitment, the weather, the risk of injury, and yeah, gator hunting ain't exactly a chill side gig. That lifestyle might be second nature for someone like Pickle. But throwing in a film crew changes the whole vibe. And then there's the question of editing. Just because someone's filming with the crew doesn't mean they'll make it into the final cut. Maybe Pickle shot a bunch of footage that just didn't get used. Maybe they decided to switch the focus back to other cast members. Reality shows are edited in a way that tells a story, and sometimes that story means people fade into the background, even if they're still doing the same work. Still, when someone like Pickle disappears completely, it usually points to a more definite change, like stepping away on her own terms. And that's something fans often overlook. Sometimes people just don't want to be on TV anymore. Maybe they want to focus on family, or their business, or just want their life back. For someone like Pickle, who already had a life and career outside of Swamp People, walking away might have been less of a big deal than it felt to fans. Look at other cast members. People like Junior Edwards, RJ Molinari, even Liz Cavalier. They were major players on the show, and then were just gone. No fireworks, no final episode celebration, just off the air. That's kind of how Swamp People works. You're in the boat one season and watching from your couch the next. It's not always personal. It's just TV. Another angle? Viewer numbers and fan engagement. Networks like History keep a close eye on who fans are watching, who's trending online, and who's bringing in the buzz. If a cast member isn't pulling views or driving clicks, that could shift how much they show up. The flip side is, if someone becomes too big, like Pickle did for a while, they might want more control, better pay, or a say in how they're portrayed. And sometimes, networks don't love that kind of pushback. It's a fine balance. Be interesting, but not too demanding. Be available, but still authentic. For a young woman with her own business and life outside of the show, that balancing act might have just stopped making sense. especially if the deal behind the scenes didn't match the value she was bringing to the screen. So when people ask, why'd Pickle leave? The answer probably isn't just one thing. It's a mix. The wear and tear of filming, the reality of contracts, the grind of making TV look easy, and maybe the simple truth that she didn't need to do it anymore. She proved what she needed to prove, earned the fans' respect, and then dipped out on her own terms. And honestly, that's the kind of exit a lot of people wish they could pull off. But Pickle was more than just a hunter on the show. She became a symbol of something deeper. So, what made her stand out beyond the gator hunts? Let's dive into how she connected with the culture of the swamp and why her legacy still sticks with fans today. Pickle Wheat and the culture of the swamp, a lasting legacy. Pickle Wheat wasn't just a fan favorite, she became part of something bigger than herself. Swamp People isn't just a TV show about hunting alligators, it's a snapshot of a whole way of life. A slower, tougher, more rooted kind of living that most folks only hear about. When you tune in, you're not just watching people pull gators out of the bayou, you're seeing family traditions, survival instincts, and a whole lot of heart. And Pickle? She fit into that world like she'd always been there. That's probably because she had always been there, or at least somewhere pretty close. She grew up in the swamps of Louisiana. Hunting, fishing, and working the land wasn't some weekend hobby. It was life. So when she stepped into that boat on her first season of Swamp People, she wasn't learning on the fly or pretending to know what she was doing. She brought that same swamp wisdom the older cast members had, just with a younger face and fresh energy. And that made her stand out in all the right ways. But it wasn't just about her skills. Pickle had a vibe. She was funny without being goofy, confident without being cocky, and tough without losing her softness. She could gut a gator and still crack a smile that made viewers feel like they were hanging out with a friend. That mix, genuine personality with serious skill, is rare on TV, especially in reality shows where people often feel like characters more than actual people. What made Pickle special was how normal she was, in the best possible way. She wasn't a performer. She wasn't trying to be famous. She was just a young woman doing what she loved, in a place she loved, surrounded by people who spoke the same language, not just literally, but culturally. She brought a sense of pride and heritage to the screen without ever having to say it out loud. For a lot of viewers, especially those from the South or from rural areas, she represented something real, a kind of person that doesn't always get seen on TV, someone who's not chasing clout, not putting on a show, but just being. And for women especially, her presence meant even more. It wasn't about her being the girl on the show. It was about her being someone who belonged there, same as anyone else. She wasn't a novelty, she was a local. Pickle also helped bridge generations on the show. You had older hunters who'd been doing this their whole lives. And then, here comes this younger face who totally got it, who respected the work, the danger, and the tradition. That made her relatable to a wider audience. Younger viewers who might have scrolled past Swamp People before started sticking around because of her. Families watched together. Little girls saw someone tough and real, and grandparents saw someone carrying the torch forward. Even off the show, Pickle's presence still lingers. People follow her online not because she's doing flashy influencer stuff, but because she's still living that same swamp life. Duck calls, fishing trips, early mornings in the wild. It's not for show, it's just who she is. That kind of consistency, being the same person on and off camera, is rare in reality TV. And that's part of why she left a lasting mark. She also carried the torch for a whole region. Louisiana swamp culture is often misunderstood or romanticized in weird ways. Either it's all danger and moonshine, or it's written off as backwoods. But Pickle helped paint a fuller picture. The hard work, the close-knit families, the connection to the land, that's what she represented. No one had to explain it. You could just see it in the way she moved, talked, worked, and lived. So yeah, Pickle Wheat might not be on Swamp People right now, but her time on the show wasn't just about gator hunting. It was about showing what real tradition looks like when it's passed down without fanfare. It was about being a strong, capable, down-to-earth woman in a world that doesn't always expect that. And it was about proving that you don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes, just being you is enough. That's a legacy, plain and simple. Facing the critics, negative feedback, and public pressure. No matter how genuine or skilled someone is, reality TV can be a tough world. And Pickle Wheat's experience was no exception. While she earned a loyal fan base for her down-to-earth vibe and hunting skills, she also faced her share of negative feedback, especially from viewers who weren't used to seeing a young woman thriving in a traditionally male-dominated space. Some criticism was straightforward, questions about whether she was tough enough or fit for the hard work. That's a typical kind of skepticism women in outdoor or extreme reality shows often face. People sometimes expect women to perform differently or have lower standards, which puts extra pressure on someone like Pickle to prove herself again and again. Even when she did the same work as her male counterparts, some viewers still doubted or questioned her. Beyond the gender angle, some fans criticized her for the way reality TV editing worked. Reality shows don't show everything, and sometimes fans thought she wasn't getting enough screen time or that the storylines didn't fully capture her skills. That frustration sometimes spilled into unfair criticism or speculation about her attitude or work ethic, even if there was no real evidence for it. Social media, while a great tool for connection, also amplified the negative voices. Online comments can be harsh and unforgiving, and Pickle likely saw some of that. Navigating criticism in the public eye isn't easy, especially when your reputation is tied to something as visceral as hunting and outdoor life. But here's the thing. Despite the negativity, Pickle stayed grounded. She didn't engage in public feuds or drama. Instead, she focused on what mattered to her: her family, her business, and her way of life. That resilience in the face of criticism is part of what earned her even more respect from fans and peers alike. In the end, dealing with negative feedback is part of being in the public eye, especially in reality TV. For Pickle Wheat, it was another challenge she handled with quiet strength, showing that you don't have to shout to prove you belong. Life after the show, Pickle Wheat's next chapter. So what does life look like for Pickle Wheat now that she's not wrangling gators on camera every week? Well, it turns out pretty normal. And honestly, that feels just right for someone like her. No big rebrand, no dramatic reinvention, no influencer lifestyle. Just good old Louisiana living, minus the film crew. After her last full appearance on Swamp People, Pickle didn't go totally off the grid, but she definitely scaled back the spotlight. One thing she's kept up with is her family business, Wheat's Game Calls. If you've followed her at all on social media, you've probably seen a few videos or photos of her helping with the duck and turkey calls. That business goes way back, and Pickle's been involved in it even before she got famous on TV. It's a family operation, rooted in the same kind of hunting tradition that Swamp People is all about. So it makes sense that she'd go back to her roots. She's still outdoors a lot, still fishing, still hunting, still living that lifestyle. The big difference now is it's not all being filmed for cable TV. And there's something kind of refreshing about that, right? In a world where everybody's trying to go viral or stay in the headlines, Pickle just quietly slipped back into her own rhythm. She's active online, sure, but not in a look-at-me way. More like, here's what I'm up to today kind of vibe. If you scroll through her Instagram or Facebook, it's a mix of swamp photos, family stuff, and outdoorsy clips. No filters, no fake polish. Just her, doing what she's always done, She still gets plenty of comments from fans, people asking if she'll come back to the show, saying they miss seeing her on TV. And every now and then, she'll like a comment or throw out a short reply. Nothing dramatic, just that quiet friendliness people always loved her for. It's not all work, either. Pickle's personal life is something she keeps mostly private, and that's probably a smart move. From what's publicly shared, she seems happy, spending time with family, working with animals, living close to the land. No signs she's chasing Hollywood, and no hints that she's bitter about leaving the show. It's more like she hit pause and just kept living. Now, fans do wonder if she'll ever come back. And truth is, that door doesn't seem totally closed. Swamp People has a history of bringing folks back after a break. We've seen it before. People disappear for a few seasons and pop back up out of nowhere. So yeah, it's possible. But if she doesn't, that's cool too. She already made her mark. She already showed the world who she is. Coming back would be a bonus, not a necessity. And it's not like she's dropped off the face of the earth. Because of her time on Swamp People, she'll probably always have a bit of a public spotlight, even if it's just a soft glow instead of a blinding one. People remember her. They look for her. She made an impression that stuck, and not just because she wrangled some scary-looking gators. It was the way she did it. Calm, skilled, humble, and just straight-up likable. One of the cool things about where Pickle is now, she's in a position to pick and choose. If she wants to jump back into TV, she probably could. If she wants to build her brand around outdoor living and swamp life, she's got the foundation. And if she just wants to stay home, make game calls, and fish on the weekends, hey, she's earned that too. So yeah, no wild headlines, no career crash, no reality TV drama. Just a young woman stepping back from the spotlight, keeping it real, and living life on her own terms. Not flashy, but honest. And that's probably the most Pickle Wheat thing she could have done. So, what really happened to Pickle Wheat from Swamp People? What really happened and why it still matters? No drama, no crash and burn story, no behind-the-scenes scandal. She came into the show like a breath of fresh air, young, skilled, grounded, and became one of the most talked-about cast members in a pretty short time. She showed up, proved herself, earned respect from fans and fellow hunters, and eventually just kind of stepped back. Quietly, smoothly, on her own terms. And maybe that's the coolest part of her story. She didn't go out with a bang because she didn't need to. Pickle never treated Swamp People like her whole identity. She was always more than just a TV character. She was a real person, living a real life. Long before the cameras showed up. So when the spotlight faded, she just kept living. No fuss, no fake goodbyes. What makes her stand out, and what keeps fans talking about her even now, is that mix of strength and simplicity. She didn't try to reinvent herself or chase clout once the show moved on. She leaned back into her roots, kept working with her hands, and stayed connected to the same land and lifestyle that got her on the show in the first place. That kind of authenticity doesn't fade. It sticks with people. She also opened the door for something bigger. Women in outdoor reality shows? Still pretty rare. But Pickle made it look normal, like it should have always been that way. She wasn't trying to prove a point, but she ended up proving one anyway. That the swamp doesn't care about gender, only about grit. And she had plenty of that. In the end, Pickle Wheat's story isn't about disappearing. It's about stepping away with your head held high. She left behind more than just gator hunting footage. She left behind a quiet kind of legacy, one built on hard work, real roots, and the kind of presence that doesn't need a spotlight to shine. Whatever she does next, she's already done something pretty rare in reality TV. She stayed true to herself the whole way through. And in the wild world of TV personalities, that's probably the hardest thing of all. Have you seen Pickle's posts lately? Write your comments below, and for more content like this, I might channel. Thanks for watching.